So today I'm going to rebuild this Delco Remy Alternator. This is out of my '69 Corvette. So this casing is the original casing from that car. So it's got the part numbers and the date codes and all that. Normally I don't get too worried about that kind of stuff, but since I have the casing, I may as well use it. Also, I sandblasted it and then put some clear coat on it. So it kind of has that period correct color, whereas this new unit, you know, it just doesn't quite look right, and it doesn't have the right casting marks, you know, in the casing. So I'm going to use this as a donor. Basically, this is a brand new alternator, so I'm going to rip all the guts out of this to rebuild this one. It's actually cheaper to buy this alternator was like $30 from Rock Auto. It's cheaper to buy this than it is to buy the entire rebuild kit. So I'm going to sacrifice this one to build one new one. Okay, so now we're going to tear this thing apart here. And taking this nut off is the first thing, and obviously there's a Allen key you can put in here, and then a 15/16, which goes on the end. You can break this loose. Now these are sometimes pretty tight, sometimes they come right off. This one was tight, and I actually had to use a pair of channel locks and put that on there like that. You know, now you're going to mess up the pulley a little bit, but I don't care. I'm not using this pulley anyway, because I've got the original pulley, which is here. It's a little bit fatter. So I don't care about this pulley, so I just did it the easy way. Usually you don't have to have any kind of a puller. See that? Usually these things just come right off. Just kind of wiggle it. So that's pretty easy. You don't really need a puller, but if it's seized on there, you know, you might need to pull it with something, some kind of a 3-jaw puller or something like that. Even this old one that I pulled out of that casing, you can see how rusted that thing is. It still came right off. And this thing's been sitting since 1981. So the next thing we're going to do is take these 4 bolts here out of the back side of this case, which is, let's see, what is that, 5/16. Okay, then this whole front piece should just come right off. So then what you want to do is you want to take out the stator. So you have these 3 bolts here, 3 nuts. You just pop those 3 out with, I think it's 11/30 seconds. So 11/30 seconds, I'll take these off, and then you can pull this guy right off of here. That's it for that. So you can see basically just got those 3 wires there that hold that in. Okay, so now we have these couple of springs here that fell out of the brush holder. So we have, let's see, this is what, 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch will take most of these little bolts out. Sometimes these will be a flathead or a Phillips. You know, like on that older unit, that's what they were. So first I'm going to take this one out so we can get this diode pack out of the way. Also, before you take this apart, it's good to pay attention to where these bolts are. So these 2 here have an insulator on them, or like a plastic washer, kind of a little bushing there. This one here does not, this one here at this far corner. So it's just these 2. So make sure you put those back in the correct location. because these will all fit in the same spot. So if you mix those up, you're going to have problems. Okay, so there's our little diode trio thing. Get this out of here. Okay. So that's the whole brush assembly there. And these brushes go down in here. Now don't freak out when you go to put this back together. If you can see there's a little hole right there. You can basically take a paper clip, stick it through there, and that'll hold the brushes in so that when you stick your armature piece back in, you don't have to worry about it hanging up on these, but we'll get to that later. Get that out of there. And then we got this capacitor. And look at that, that was a brand new unit, and that wire looks kind of crappy, but it'll still function without this. And then we have a 7/16 that holds the rectifier in along with this here. So switch out to our 7/16 for this bolt here. And then we can take our rectifier out. And that's almost about it for the disassembly. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to use the press to knock this bearing here out of the back. And then we'll also pop this bearing out and press it into the old case. So to remove this bearing here in the center, what I'm going to do is set it up here in the press. I'm going to use a 15/16 socket, which is going to go right on the back like this. And then what I'll use is this. I'm just using an 11mm socket, which will just sit down inside there, and we'll just press that thing right out. And that's it. Comes out real easy. Piece of cake. Now for the front bearing, we got to take these bolts here out first, get this retainer out. And there's also this little spacer here that just kind of hangs in there sometimes just with a little bit of grease. It's just stuck there. But make sure you don't lose that, and don't forget to put that back on. So I went ahead and removed the retainer here. And what I'm going to do to press this out is on the front side, I'm going to use this 17mm socket, which is just going to set right in there like that to press that out. But to hold the back side, I'm going to use two of these old bearing races. Now it's good to keep these for this kind of stuff, but basically I'm just going to set these in here and stack them up kind of like that. And then I'm going to put this piece of plate across there, and then this big socket, so that that's creating space so that I can push that thing out, and then it'll just sit in the press this way, just like that. And then I'll press this 17mm socket just to push that bearing right out of there. But you know, you can kind of, whatever you have that'll fit in here to make that work. This is just what I happen to have laying around. So, and these bearing races, they work really nice because they'll sit in there nice to where I get good contact, you know, because you don't want to put anything that's way out here against these because you might break them off. So that'll work nice. That's it. And there it is. Now we're going to press this bearing into the old casing. Put a little grease on this thing to help it slide in. I tapped it in a little bit with a hammer first just to kind of get it started. And then we'll just kind of push it in. There we go. All right. Put a little grease inside here. Make it smooth. All right. So I'm just going to press that directly in with the press here. I'm not even going to put anything on that. It's that easy. So we got our retaining plate now put in there, and that basically takes care of this front piece. That's pretty much done. Now we're going to assemble this back half, which is going to start with putting in the rectifier. So we'll go ahead and start putting this together. Now it's this little plastic piece. It's got a little square piece, a little square indentation. Make sure that goes in there. Put that nut in. And that will just go right on like that. And you got a 7/16 nut that holds that on there. And then we got this little bolt goes in there. Let's get that one on first. And that little red thing is seated in there nicely. Little plastic bushing. Okay, that looks good. Okay, next is going to be the rectifier, or the voltage regulator. The voltage regulator just sits in there, so those 3 holes line up. And then we will do the brush holder, which is real simple. So you got your 2 springs that go in there. And you just push your brush in. And then to hold these in place, I'm just going to use a little drill bit and just slide that in there right through those holes, just like that. Then when we set that in there and we get the whole thing assembled, we'll pull this drill bit out from the back side. It'll release those brushes and we'll be good. So that goes in there just like that. And then this bolt here on the outside is the one that does not have any insulation on it. There's no bushing. So we'll get that one put on. Then we have the 2 screws that have the insulation. They go on there like that. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, so we still got to put this on here yet. Just like that. And let's see here. Come on. Get that there like that. There we go. That's that. And we got our capacitor, which will go in here. Okay, that looks good. So we'll go ahead and put our stator in here. And then the stator has to be indexed properly so that you got little notches here where your screws go in. So you might have to kind of move it a little bit to kind of get it where you need it. Okay, that looks good. I'll reinstall these nuts here. And also here, make sure whenever you put these nuts on, that these leads coming down to here don't short out against the heat sink of your rectifier. So now all we gotta do is throw that armature in there and button this thing up. So this guy, slide that down in there, put this piece on. Now this is where you gotta know which way this goes. So let's see, on this one, if I remember correctly, right here where these part numbers are, this plug, now it might be different on yours, but that's where it needs to be on this one. So I got that all pulled down nice and tight. Looks like it's in about as far as it'll go. So that's set up pretty good. So, and don't forget to pull your, whether you're using a drill bit or some sort of a, you know, little paper clip in the back. Don't forget to pull that out and set your brushes in there. And then put your little spacer in there. And then now I got these. I'm going to sandblast these and paint them up nice. Once I do that, this thing's pretty much done, ready to go back on my car. Well, that's about it for this one. Thanks for watching.